And this is a great opportunity to us here and to show the world that peace is possible, that we have Palestinians and Israelis together.
There was nobody who actually connected the dots. We wanted to connect the dots in this region, because we believe strongly that the MENA region, it has a bright future in front of it.
So the conflict is about 100 years long, and today everything is changing.
Moderation is understood from the basic concept in the Quran.
When we look at history of humanity, we find that middle means center of interest. The center of interest because of the center of Abrahamic religions, or the religions of the world.
Mosque is the third biggest one in the world. After Mecca and Medina, covers 9 hectares. 2 inside, 7 outside.
Shabbat Shalom means very moving to have you all here. Friday, Shabbat, it's a good start.
Is to know that there is lighthouses right out there. And one of them is in this place, in Morocco and in Israel.
Hope that this will be the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Because sometimes we need just to talk. I've been to Israel, I've been to Palestine, and I've been to maybe dozens of meetings like that, hearing different perspectives. And this is very, very important, especially for this young generation.
Personal for me, and I'm very happy to see things here, to see cuts, to see tension, to see cries, to see laughing. I think that is just beginning.
The week was extremely illuminating and really meaningful. The lectures were enlightening. The group activities and discussions were engaging and stimulating, but most importantly, it gave me an opportunity to meet people that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to meet.
Truth brings hope. Hope brings peace. Peace brings respect, and respect brings friendship.
On a personal note, it was very eye-opening to me to meet and connect to like-minded people when it comes to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But not only Israelis and Palestinians, also Moroccans and North Africans.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Ben Birnbaum, and I'm the founder and the president of ROPES. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, ROPES is an organization that connects forward-thinking Israeli and Palestinian emerging leaders with new partners and allies across the Arab world through various people-to-people programs. You just saw a video about our most recent program, an education program for graduate students that we held a couple months ago for 30 elite grad students in Morocco. ROPES also runs yearly leadership summits. We bring dual narrative delegations of Arab emerging leaders to visit Israel and the West Bank. And we also have a conflict journalism course for young media professionals. And we're very proud that last year, in spite of extremely challenging circumstances, we were able to carry out twice as many programs as the year before. Through our various programs, ROPES has over the past few years built an alumni network of more than 150 emerging leaders from Israel, the Palestinian territories, and 15 countries across the Middle East and North Africa. These are young diplomats, politicians, business leaders, journalists, cultural figures, influencers, and other change makers who share our vision of a post-conflict Middle East in which the state of Israel and an independent state of Palestine are at peace with each other and are fully integrated into a new regional order. We're putting a major focus on strengthening our alumni network, and we plan to have at least 40 of our alumni join us in Romania in July for a hackathon to brainstorm joint projects and ways that we can spread our message of unity in this time of division. Now, ROPES would have never gotten off the ground without the support of our incredible advisory board. Some of you tuned in to our December event with Ambassador Dennis Ross, and today we have the privilege of hearing from former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Dan Shapiro. Ambassador Shapiro is going to make some opening remarks, and then we're going to take questions from you, the audience. If you'd like to direct a question to Ambassador Shapiro, please use the Q&A box and include your name and location, and we'll get to as many as we can. Now, before we begin, I do want to stress that we're here today in order to raise funds for expanding ROPES' various people-to-people programs, to strengthen our alumni relations, and also to launch our first regional bureaus in Morocco and the United Arab Emirates, all of which are critical for expanding our long-term impact. So if you share our mission and are encouraged by the work we've been able to do under difficult circumstances, we hope you'll consider making a tax-deductible contribution at whatever level is right for you. Simply use the QR code on your screen or go to ropes.org/donate. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Ambassador Dan Shapiro. Dan Shapiro is the former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, having served in that role from 2011 to 2017. In his most recent government service, Shapiro was Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East from 2024 to 2025, and prior to that was Senior Advisor on Regional Integration in the State Department's Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs, where he was the point man for advancing the Abraham Accords. Prior to his ambassadorship, Ambassador Shapiro worked as a Senior Director for the Middle East and North Africa on the National Security Council at the White House, following his role as a Senior Policy Advisor in Barack Obama's presidential campaign. He is currently a Distinguished Fellow with the Atlantic Council's Scowcroft Middle East Security Initiative, having previously directed its N7 initiative. Ambassador Shapiro, thank you so much for your support of ROPES. We are truly honored. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ben. It's a pleasure to be with the ROPES community today and share a few thoughts on what's happening today, but as Ben said, especially offer my support, and I hope we will elicit some of your support for ROPES to continue its ongoing extremely important work. We are in critical days right now. Today is the 600th day since the October 7th attacks, and of course that means that that's 600 days that 58 of the hostages have still been held, and negotiations are ongoing for their release. And it also means 600 days that civilians in Gaza have been subject to a terrible war ruled by a terrible terrorist organization, but obviously under great pressure from Israeli military operations and in need of significant humanitarian assistance. So these are critical days. We know that even as we speak, the president's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is involved in negotiations, trying to arrange for an additional ceasefire and hostage agreement. There are, of course, different proposals out there. I think the one that, as I understand it, he is focused on is a partial, let's call it a partial deal a release for a limited number of the hostages, perhaps 10 of the living hostages. There may be 20 of those, and 40 to 60 days of ceasefire. And during that ceasefire, of course, having a significant influx of aid into Gaza. That would provide some relief, and obviously, if it can be arranged, it's certainly better than the situation we have now. But I'll just offer my own thoughts here that I think really the goal and the effort that they should be making the most effort on would be to go for a full and complete ceasefire in exchange for a full and complete release of all hostages, and with that a declaration of the cessation of hostilities and the end of the war. This war, 600 days old now, has caused untold suffering on all sides, and it needs to end. And I think President Trump himself has said that recently, that he wants this to end as quickly as possible. And that means end it, not just postpone its end through a partial temporary deal. One of the things President Trump could do that would help facilitate that goal would be to clarify, and I guess I might be more explicit and say kind of withdraw the proposal he made when Prime Minister Netanyahu visited the White House in February. That was the visit when the president announced what is, just for shorthand, I'll call his Gaza Riviera proposal. The U.S. taking over Gaza, Palestinians leaving Gaza, and transforming it into some kind of hotel strip along the coast. This is not going to happen. It was never going to happen. Obviously, Palestinians who wish to leave Gaza should be able to, but many would not, and they cannot be forced to under international law. And so this was not a realistic proposal, but it had the unfortunate effect of emboldening the furthest right elements of the Israeli coalition, particularly ministers Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, who have a different agenda. Their agenda is to reoccupy Gaza, to resettle Gaza. So that's obviously not anything that should happen or could possibly happen peacefully or produce the outcomes that we need to see, which is hostages, as many alive as possible, coming home, relief for suffering civilians in Gaza, and the beginning of building a new and peaceful relationship between Palestinians in Gaza and Palestinians elsewhere and Israel. President Trump really had an opportunity, I thought, during his most recent visit to the Middle East, and could have and should have used it to promote that kind of effort. He could have stopped in Israel and really insisted at that point during that visit on a permanent ceasefire and release of all hostages. He could have recognized, even in that scenario, that Israel might need at some stage to continue to conduct limited operations or target operations against Hamas. This was an arrangement agreed in the side letter under the Israel-Lebanon or Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire last fall, which has actually supported Lebanon continuing to recover, and Israelis in the north continuing to recover from that war. He could have elicited commitments from other Arab states, the states he was visiting, these very important Arab leaders in the Arab world with significant resources, to provide reconstruction assistance for Gaza, to help facilitate the exile of the remaining Hamas leaders and fighters from Gaza who have caused so much suffering to their own people, and whose removal really is a necessity for us to be able to move on to the next stage. And if all of that were happening, there would be a possibility of renewing progress on normalization between Israel and Saudi Arabia, and getting back to what we all want to see, which is the resumption of the progress represented by the Abraham Accords and the beginnings of a much more integrated Middle East. That's the work, as Ben referenced, that I was doing previously in the Atlantic Council with the N7 initiative, and then I went into the Biden administration in the summer of 2023 to work on, because that's the what we should all be focused on, making the Middle East a place where Israelis and Palestinians and Arabs from countries all over the region are able to interact and do business and improve their health and education and their energy and their economic prospects through cooperation. That's the opportunity that was represented by those breakthroughs and remains a very critical opportunity. It's hard to see it sometimes in the bleak moments of a war like this, but wars end. They sometimes end messy, but they do end. And then there is a rebuilding opportunity. And that's what we need to get back to. And we need to get back to it as quickly as possible. So I think President Trump still has the opportunity to put his very influential hand on the side of an immediate end to the war, a cessation of full hostilities, and release of all hostages to begin that process that I just mentioned. And I'll continue to advocate for that in the ways that I can. What I do want to say, though, is that what we are gathered here on this call to discuss very much is in keeping with the same goals. And ROPES, as I think everybody who has joined us knows, really was ahead of its time in seeing the opportunity and seeing the potential and seeing the work that's needed to build this more integrated, more peaceful Middle East. The first time I sat down with Ben to hear about this idea for ROPES was in 2018, more than 2 years before the Abraham Accords were signed in 2020. And already ROPES was hard at work building a network in the UAE and Morocco and Bahrain and Israel and elsewhere, even before the Abraham Accords were signed. ROPES has the right approach to this challenging region. That is to combine a broader regional integration between Israelis and Arabs with an effort to secure a just, peaceful resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict with an Israel and a Palestinian state living peacefully alongside each other. Those two goals reinforce each other. One is not a substitute for the other. One should never be sublimated in advance for the other. And I think there was an opportunity emerging from the Abraham Accords to make progress, to broaden the integration and to use that progress to improve the prospects and advance the prospects of an Israeli-Palestinian resolution as well. So that's the approach ROPES has always taken, and it has implemented it through the building of a incredibly impressive cohort of people-to-people activists, especially younger activists in multiple countries that have normalized relations with each other and countries that do not have normalized relations. But the people in those countries, these young leaders, have committed themselves to this process of integration, of learning one person at a time how they can build partnerships and how they can help advance this goal of a much different region than the Middle East has been. ROPES has done this through building incredibly strong relationships at the highest levels of multiple governments in the region, including the Abraham Accords countries, including, of course, in Israel and the Palestinian Authority. There are prominent members of the advisory board that I'm pleased to serve on with, such as Ambassador Yusuf Al-Otaiba from the UAE, former Ambassador Hodanonu from Bahrain, Andre Azulai, the key advisor to the King of Morocco, members of the Khalifa family from Bahrain. It's really a who's who of the people you want to talk to in Israel and in Palestine and in the Arab world who are committed to this same vision of broadening regional integration and as a path to peace. ROPES is, of course, led by incredibly hardworking, strategic, serious, trustworthy people. Ben is with us on the screen. Ksenia Svetlov, unfortunately, is not with us, but I can't think of a team I have more trust in, or I would recommend anybody have more trust in than these people, and many of the other leaders of ROPES who have dedicated themselves for now years and with great sweat equity to build a platform and an organization that is having real impact on the lives of everyone it touches, but even much more broadly than that on the countries and societies they live in and on the region they live in. and they've shown the durability of this approach even in this very difficult post-October 7th period. You would think perhaps that ropes could not continue its work until the war ends. And fortunately, that's not the case. I think we just saw this inspiring video of the recent gathering of ropes activists in Morocco, and the learning and the sharing and the people-to-people relations that were deepened during that conversation, and many other encounters that have taken place even in these terrible last 19 months are evidence that this approach is working and needs to be sustained, and then needs to be the platform and the launching pad for much more progress after this war comes to an end, hopefully very soon. So ropes is absolutely worthy of your support. I encourage everybody on the call and others that you know to support ropes with this hard but extremely important work that they are engaged in, and I'm very proud to be an advisor to this wonderful organization. Ben, I'll pause there, and I'll be very happy to take some questions from folks on the call.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Shapiro. We're going to get right to the questions, but we really appreciate your kind words. Our first question comes from Omar in the West Bank. Ambassador Shapiro, as peace activists and members of civil society, we often feel powerless when political leaders on both sides seem unwilling to pursue genuine peace. In your experience, how can we, the people, the peace organizations, and grassroots movements meaningfully contribute to shaping a peaceful future? And do you see any alternative approaches or new frameworks we could explore to move beyond the current political stalemate?
Omar, thanks for the question. And I recognize and understand and empathize with the frustration that sometimes people hard at work in this peace building, in the peace building vineyards, which you all are, feel when leaders are stuck in old paradigms or stuck in internal politics that make it hard for them to point policies in the same direction. And there's no question leaders matter. And I think many leaders, we've seen times when leaders of parties in conflict, and of course I think of Anwar Sadat and Menachem Begin, I think of Yitzhak Rabin and King Hussein. We've seen times when leaders have taken risk and taken a chance and built some trust, maybe not perfect trust, but together moved forward, and of course with the strong support of the United States and other partners to build a different future. And that's how we got the peace treaties between Egypt and Israel and Jordan and Israel. Now, those are not perfect either. There have been very important pillars of peace and stability and in the region, and they still are. But unfortunately, even in those encounters, we haven't had the same kinds of relationships built between societies, between youth, between business people, between students in Egypt and Israel and Jordan and Israel that would help make those relationships even stronger. And so I think, but even though those leaders could only have made those choices if they had knew that this is something that their publics were demanding and could support. And so raising your voice, Omar, and everybody on this call, any opportunity you have to sort of demand that leaders pivot. It's going to be not until the war is over, but the war will end, and it hopefully will end very soon, and then pivot to a different path. That may require new leaders. I'm not sure the current leaders in Israel, the Palestinian Authority, are the leaders who can make these changes, but they need to know that their publics are demanding something new, and maybe it's from new leaders. But in the meantime, I think the hard work is to sustain the building of these relationships and this broader, more integrated set of relationships, even before the politics are ready, even before the leaders are there or the leaders have made the decisions that would allow this kind of major breakthrough to occur. And it's possible. That's what we're seeing with ropes. If anybody has not, who's of the right age and the right sort of background, has not yet participated in and attended a ropes gathering, it's incredible how meaningful and how impactful those kinds of encounters are. When I was running the N7 initiative, it was very much the same. We would have people together in rooms who should have known each other for years because they had shared common interest or common expertise in water and agriculture and education, in business, but for political reasons had never met. But once they were in the same room, the ideas started to flow, the connection started to be made, the breaking down of barriers and assumptions, and interacting just as any two people or any group of people can when they see their common humanity. And it was amazing what was getting underway. Again, much of it had to be paused, or it's gone slower, or it's more quiet because of the war. But that work can go on now, and it must be immediately following the war raised to its most highest profile and highest velocity that it can be.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Shapiro. Our next question comes from our friend Jack Gorman in the Bronx, New York. Saudi Arabia has made it a condition of entering into an agreement with Israel a clear path to Palestinian statehood. That is something many of us would like to see, but is it a realistic goal at the moment?
I was part of the team in the Biden administration that was negotiating with the Saudis, not primarily on that issue, primarily on the bilateral U.S.-Saudi agreements that would accompany Saudi normalization with Israel, security agreements, economic agreements, civil nuclear energy agreements, and the like. And we came very, very close. I think we were basically completed with that work. And had we been able to get a ceasefire and a hostage deal and have the war end, then the discussions between Israel and Saudi Arabia could have hopefully finalized the remainder. And that's an important piece of it. The Saudis have signaled clearly, as you've stated, that they want and expect and need, as part of a normalization package, a clear pathway to achieving a Palestinian state. Exactly how that would be expressed, exactly what words and timelines and steps that would need to be taken to fulfill that requirement, I think is something that Israel and Saudis and even Palestinians would probably have to negotiate. And those discussions were underway before the war, and of course in the bilateral U.S.-Saudi context were somewhat underway during the war. We haven't gotten back to them. I don't know exactly what that would look like. I'm not certain the current Israeli government is the government that can make those types of commitments. I do think the pathway to Palestinian statehood is going to look different than those of us who have been at this for many years, even decades, might have once thought and hoped. The sort of Oslo model of the pathway to that outcome of that Palestinian state of that those dimensions may not be the path. And it may take longer and it may look different. But obviously, there isn't going to be an end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict until we know how that path is resolved. And as you've stated, it's a key component of building the broader relationships between Israel and various countries in the region and that broader integrated region. So I don't want to be too prescriptive about what it looks like. And I'm realistic in my appraisal of whether, again, the current leaders are the ones, particularly in Israel, who can have that conversation. And the Israeli public may not be quite ready to have that conversation, again, for understandable reasons following the October 7th attacks. But we need to get there. And I do think the moment the war ends and we're in a different phase, and that opportunity of the dramatic transformation in the region of Saudi-Israel normalization and the broader integration that would inspire and promote, I think that becomes a different incentive and a different calculation, even for many Israelis who are still very traumatized and maybe with different Israeli leaders. So I don't know the precise dimensions, I don't know the precise timelines, and I certainly don't know when and how that's going to happen, but it is a critical component, and I believe it can happen as soon as we get, or soon after we get this terrible war brought to a close.
Thank you so much. We have time for one, maybe two more questions. And our next question comes from our friend John Peretz in St. Paul, Minnesota. You said that most people agree that Hamas must be removed from power and exiled in order for there to be any real progress. What is holding this back from occurring? Where are the Gulf states on this?
Yeah, I was still at the State Department on October 7th doing regional integration. We had big plans. We had a negative foreign ministerial planned for Marrakesh on October 19th. The Israeli-Saudi discussions were moving forward. It was among many tragedies of what happened was the progress that was lost then. And when I wasn't able to continue with that regional integration work after October 7th, I began work on a day after planning or post-conflict planning unit in the State Department before I later moved over to the Pentagon. And one of the sort of planning assumptions we landed on, and I think it's accurate, was that unless Hamas is actually really removed from power and really eliminated as a threat to Israel or as a ruling entity in Gaza, we don't really get to the day after. That's a necessary component to help get to any of the things we want to see happen. Discussions on a two-state solution, Arab troops coming in perhaps as a stability force, Arab states contributing funds for reconstruction, getting a responsible Palestinian Authority affiliated leadership and security element brought into Gaza to replace Hamas. Those are all things that we're going to need to happen, and none of those things are going to happen if at the end of this war Hamas clings even in a battered and bruised form to power and as the muscle in Gaza, able to rebuild slowly but surely and plan its next attack and continue to ruin the lives of the Palestinians they rule and threaten the lives of Israelis over the border. So this is going to be necessary. One of the things I don't think we did enough of in the Biden administration, and I think the Trump administration also needs to do more of, is to really focus on this question. Removing Hamas is not necessarily done, maybe not primarily done through military means. Obviously, many Hamas leaders and fighters have been killed, but there will always be some replacement leaders and some replacement fighters. You can't remove every last person, but we have a model for this. In 1982, the American diplomats negotiated the departure of thousands of PLO leaders and fighters from Beirut when it was under siege by the IDF. The leadership went to Tunis. The fighters went to various places, distant places throughout the region. This is complicated. It's difficult to find places for these people to go. It needs financing and facilitation by Arab states, and particularly the Gulf states you mentioned. They have resources, and I think, again, this is something that President Trump could have used his trip to try to advance, and should still, given the relationships he has with those leaders, try to elicit those commitments from him to do. It still can happen. It may be after a ceasefire that the last group of leaders, again, more have been killed, and a certain critical mass of the fighters actually have to leave. And that's something that would make the lives of Palestinians infinitely better. We've seen this difficulty of getting aid brought in to Palestinians in Gaza, in part because Hamas has tried to capture the aid, resell it, use it for themselves, and use it as a form of political control. So everybody's lives would be better. The Palestinians in Gaza, the pathway to a better future for Palestinians without Hamas as a factor in their lives, and certainly for Israelis to remove that threat. But it's really a necessity in order to get to that day after that we're all trying to get to. So it can be done. It's not easy. It takes intense diplomacy. It takes resources. It takes a very significant organizing effort, and it has not been the main organizing effort because so much has been focused on the hostage deal and the ceasefire and the assistance, all important elements. But we need to make sure this is not lost, because otherwise the seeds will be sown for a future conflict, and none of us and nobody involved wants to see that happen.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Shapiro. It's been great speaking with you today. We really appreciate all your support, and look forward to many more years of partnership with you.
Likewise. Thank you, Ben. And again, just want to underscore my deep admiration and appreciation for ROPES, its leadership, and all its participants, and hope everyone on this call will spread the word and also make your own generous contributions. Thank you.
And I want to thank you all for joining us today. I want to thank especially those who have donated to help us reach our spring fundraising goal. With that, I want to thank everyone for believing in our message. I know in these times of darkness, it's very difficult to see a light at the end of the tunnel, but as I like to say, and many people like to say, it's much better to light a candle than to curse the darkness. And here at Ropes, we've lit 150 plus amazing candles. We want to light a lot more and show people that there is a different path, a third path that is not with the extremes, but is a future in which Israelis, Palestinians, and people across the region can be partners and friends and not eternal enemies. So with that, I want to thank you for joining us, and I hope you'll continue to tune into our programs in the future. Thank you.